how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. This is episode 216, and I had a conversation with Enes Cerić, and he is from Bosnia. When he was a young man, the Bosnian War happened. I'm going to give you a couple dates and some information in this preamble, just because I think it helps if you don't know, especially about the Bosnian War. It sets up some of the information said in this episode. So the Bosnian War happened between April 6, 1992 and December 14th, 1995. Srebrenica massacre happened July 11th, 1995 through July 22nd. And that was the genocidal massacre of more than 8,000 Bosniaks by the Serb army. The Serbs are the Orthodox Christians, the Bosniaks are the Muslims, and the Croatians are the Catholics. I reference an episode of this show with Dr. Donnie Steadman in this episode, and her episode I highly recommend listening to, of course. She's a phenomenal human being. Hers is episode 83, so definitely go back and check that out if you haven't heard it already. The title of that episode is Let the Truth of Our Bones Tell Our Stories. And it also refers to Franz Ferdinand in this episode. He was assassinated June 28th, 1914 in Sarajevo. And it talks about some maps that he said he was going to send me, and he did. I will put those on the Instagram and Facebook pages under Hey Human Podcast. That's how you find those. And something very interesting happened in this episode. About 38 or so, 40 minutes in. So how I do this recording, I have a separate computer that is doing the recording. And then for the over the internet conversations, I'm doing that through my iPad, so totally separate devices. Something happened while I was talking with Enes. He later told me that in that moment, the screen went really weird, like it froze. You can hear us talking in that moment, but there's also another voice that happens. So I want you to keep an ear out for that. In other news, social media, as I mentioned, Hey Human Podcast can be found on Instagram and on Facebook. My own personal social medias are under Susan Ruthism. They can be found Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can email me, susan@heyhumanpodcast.com. There's a links page on heyhumanpodcast.com that supports every episode, and I try and gather up as much information as I can externally, movies, books, articles, whatnot, and post them in that particular episode's link section on the website. So definitely check that out. It's curated for you by me. Rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you want to check out more about me, go to susanruth.com. You can find my music, my albums on iTunes under Susan Ruth. Check that out if you're into music or if you want to see what kind of music I do. Oh, I should mention on susanruth.com you can sign up for my mailing list. I don't send out mailers every day or anything like that. So you will not be over inundated by emails from me. But if you are interested in some of the things going on, I send them out every few months. Although last year, I went a whole year before I sent between one and the other. So, you're not going to get overrun is all I'm saying. If you care to donate to Hey Human Podcast, help keep it ad-free, you can do so on the heyhumanpodcast.com website. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you to everyone that has donated thus far. It's very helpful. All right, let's get into this. Thanks for listening, everyone, and be well, stay safe, be kind to each other. Here we go.
How are you?
I'm good. There's some construction going on next door, so I apologize if you hear any of that. But progress, right? Neighborhood progress. What are you going to do?
Well, I just kicked all the 17-year-olds out of the house. So
nice. How many are there?
Well, we have one, and then usually there's 3 or 4. It's a posse group of 4 of them.
Nice.
They always hang out together, so they had a sleepover last night, so everybody's leaving. Like they all left. So
I want to make sure I pronounce your last name right. Is it Cerić?
Yeah, so last name is Cerić. It's that.
Cerić.
It's like a titi fly.
Cerić.
Cerić.
What is the Sarah?
That's my nickname back home that everybody knows me.
Oh, got it. Okay, well, I'm glad I asked then. Okay. Cerić. Is that right? Cerić?
So Cerić. It's like the last C is it's a little V. In the Slavic languages, you have a V, and the V is a hard ch, and the one side to the right is a ch. It's like a softer sound.
Let me hear it in with you pronouncing your whole name.
It's Enes Cerić.
Enes Cerić.
There you go. It's like a titi fly, and then it's, believe me, my wife has been struggling for a long time. She's working on it too, so it's all good.
Where is she from?
She's from San Bernardino. She's born and raised U.S., and, she went to UC Berkeley and kind of stayed up north, and we met up here when I came. We met in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah? Where did you meet? Yeah. How did that go down?
A sports bar.
What? A sports bar?
At the sports Just playing pool through some friends, typical right up on Russian Hill in San Francisco. I don't know if you know the city well.
A little bit.
Close to the Fisherman's Wharf area, just a little bit in, So it's.
What were your moves? How'd you?
I know we ended up playing pool. She came with a friend, and I was there with my friend playing pool, and our mutual friends knew each other. So we end up playing pool like a whole night and end up talking, and that was it.
Nice.
Yes.
How long have you been married?
This October is going to be 20 years.
Wow. Congratulations. What's the secret?
Just try to be nice to each other and enjoy the life every day you can, so
yeah.
There's really not much to it. Don't make it too difficult.
I feel like you have an even better perspective on understanding what that means, given your background.
It does a little bit, I like to say it, my life at a young age got the reset button, because you had the one certain life, and then that all got uprooted and kind of put you in a turmoil of some sort of a survival mood. And then there was a good parts of it, don't get me wrong. There was a lot of good stuff during that time and funny things, but also you were in survival mode, trying to, survive, keep the family straight, keep your head on your shoulders, worry about your family and friends and anybody nearby. And then I had the opportunity to leave, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to take this train and one way, so at least I can help my family. My whole idea was, if I leave and start something from scratch, at least I can send it back, whatever I can, to try to get the life normal again for those people when the thing settles down at some point. And it did end up being that way, so.
Well, let's start from the beginnings of you. You were born in Bosnia, or were you born?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Yugoslavia was at the time. Yeah. So I was born in a small town in the middle of the country. Yugoslavia at the time, Bosnia and Herzegovina was a state, if you will. Yugoslavia used to have 6 republics, which is like 50 states here. And Jajce is the name of the town. It's a Jajce. It's a very small town with a lot of significant history for that part of the world. And, growing up in Yugoslavia at the time was kind of, it was different. It was happy times. Everybody had the jobs, schools, the colleges was free. Part of the parents' taxes from the payroll were going to the education. So education was free for everybody. You just had to pass the entrance exam for the colleges that you need to. So after graduating from high school, which was like in early 80s, at that time in Yugoslavia itself, for all the boys, when they graduate high school, it was a 1-year mandatory for a military service. So you at that time go and be enlisted for a year. and then you come back. You go to college exam. You actually, if you get passed and accepted, they hold the spot for you. So you go to military for a year, and then you come back later, and then you start university. So you eventually a year behind with all your girlfriends, friends, because they're all ahead of time. So all the boys are literally a year behind school-wise, but you're on the same age scale. So that was in 1989.
And at that time, all the different religious people got along, right? Everybody.
Yeah, everything was fine. I mean, my family. So I am born and raised Muslim. The majority of the background in the home, my family itself is Muslim background. But they were my aunt, my dad's side's aunt married. My uncle is a Catholic. He was a Croatian, and my aunt, my other uncle, married a Catholic woman as well. So we had mixed marriages in our family, and that was never a problem.
To be clear to the people listening, Bosniaks would be Muslim, and the Serbians would be the Orthodox Christian, and then the
Croatians are the Catholic
faith.
The
Catholics, yeah.
Yeah. So nowadays in Bosnia, you have that way. There's Croatians from Croatia, but you have the Bosnian national citizens that it's Croatian group, but it's Catholic faith. And then you have the Serbs who are the Eastern Orthodox Christian faith. And then Bosnians now, majority, they identify themselves as Muslim faith, Islam. But there's also Jewish, there's other Gypsies and other religions, but it's minorities at the time. But those three are the main
amount of Jewish.
Yeah, it's a very small community. That's right. Sarajevo, as I was saying, when I came back from military, I went to Sarajevo for university, and I started studying math for whatever reason. For those people that never been to Sarajevo, it's a beautiful cultural city that in the old part of town, within I would say, let me put it, maybe within 5 blocks either direction you go, there's a main mosque, main Catholic church, main Orthodox church, and the synagogue was just across the river. So it was just, everything was so plural. It's a melting pot of the cultures in that part of the world.
And those buildings were built in the 1500s and stuff, right?
Some of them were there in 1600s. A lot of it was improved and better when the Habsburg monarchy when the Bosnia became part of the Habsburg monarchy in 1908. That they kind of improved, and if you go to Austria, or you could see the similar buildings in Sarajevo. Those are all big buildings with the doors that are like 20 feet tall. And we used to have a joke for the friends who used to study go to the law school, which was right on the river, very close to the library that burned during the war. And they said, "What are you studying?" I said, "Law." I said, "Oh, how is the first year?" He said, "Really hard, but the hardest thing is to open a door to get in." Because those wooden doors were so hard and they were like so big, but that was a joke, it was kind of funny.
You were in college when things started to look like they were turning into, I know that Bosnia asked to be its own state.
Correct.
And things were things were getting weird, like the finances of the country and.
Yeah, so everything kind of started going a little south. So after Tito died, which was in 1980, the way how it was structured then each republic had to govern for 1 year. They would send representative to Belgrade and a part of the governing body. But towards to the late 80s, when the Czechoslovakia got split, and then Berlin Wall came down, and the Russia started splitting. CCCP, as my wife likes to call it, and we always joke about that. They came apart. Then succession of Yugoslavia kind of became inevitable because there was a lot of always the fractions between kind of East and West. And West meaning Slovenia and Croatia were always kind of closer to the Europe because the way how they positioned. And eastern side traditionally more tend to the Russia or that side of the culture. And Bosnia was stuck in the middle because we were just the kind of mix of everything. So in 1990, 89, 90, the financial crisis started, and so the inflation went really up. And then 1991, I think that's when it started kind of in Slovenia, and they had the war for 1 week. And then, the old Yugoslavian army kind of moved out. And then Croatia started it, and then you had those pictures of Dubrovnik being bombed and all of that. That was like late 91, early 92. And at that time, I was in Sarajevo and kind of didn't look right. We in Bosnia are very laid-back people, very welcoming culture. We were like, it's not going to happen. It's all around us, but But it became really harder to travel. You couldn't do anything much. The stores were becoming emptier and emptier. There's a lot of stuff you couldn't buy anymore. And then I came home. I was home for the winter holiday, which was right. Usually the schools don't start till end of January there for the winter break. And I was at home. I was like, I don't know if I want to go back. I'm not sure. And everything kind of started, but thing blew up in the early April of the 1992. And that's when everything kind of started it from that point on. So it was a Ramadan. I remember it was a celebration of the end of Ramadan, first day of Eid. And that's when the things in Sarajevo started, when the girl got shot on that bridge. Actually, about the night before, because there was an Orthodox wedding up at the Old Town Church, and one of the members of the wedding party got shot.
The father-in-law, right? To be or something?
Somebody, I don't remember right now. And then that kind of triggered it. Then it was start pointing fingers, and Muslims did it. And it was some sort of it was a lot of gang thing, whatever the related thing, and that kind of triggered it. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, people were protesting about, we don't want to do this, we don't want a succession of the Bosnia, we wanted to do this. And then all of a sudden, the snipers start shooting from the hill on the southeast side of the town, and they killed, I think the first day there was 3 people that got shot and killed, and everybody and then next thing you know, you're seeing the pictures of bombing and the TV tower getting blown up and the Holiday Inn and all of these buildings in Sarajevo, and then the rest of the country start blowing up as well. So
when did you, especially as a Muslim, realize that ethnic cleansing, the genocide, was on the mind of the Serbian government?
So it's a good question you asked, because Jajce was my hometown. It's a very small town. I mean, the municipality itself before the war was about 40,000 people. Town itself was about 10. And predominantly, the bigger majority of the town were Muslim people. And then the split between Catholics and Orthodox was on kind of maybe that 40, 30, 30, or maybe the numbers. And we kind of noticed there's something going fishy, because all of a sudden, like a week before everything blew up, you couldn't see anybody Orthodox faith in town. They just left.
Oh, they fled, the Orthodox?
They left. Literally, they knew, and they packed up their stuff and they left.
Do you mean the Orthodox Christians, the Serbians?
Yes, Serbs.
Yeah, because I know some
majority
of
the Serbs population left, and they left to the nearby towns. Like some went back to Banja Luka, which is the bigger town next door, and some went to those little smaller towns outside of town. And everybody's like, "What's going on? This is not right." And next thing you know, everything got shut off. We were under siege. Our town was under siege. We couldn't go anywhere. And on the May 27th, it was the Wednesday was always Farmers Markets Day in town. So, all the villagers, everybody would come down, sell things. And 3:05 in the afternoon, the first grenade hit, and everybody started running around trying to get cover. And that's how it started, May 27th. And we were under siege for 6 months, literally. The anti-cleansing already kind of started a little bit earlier in northern eastern Bosnia, which is closer to corner of the Serbia and Bosnia and Croatia, where they all kind of meet on the eastern side. There those things about white eagles coming into town and kicking and killing some people. And you could hear that in the municipalities where the Serbs and Orthodox were in majority and ruled the town by the mayors or, by the political, they start cleansing. They literally started telling either people, kicking them out or taking their stuff, or you became almost like a second grade citizen.
Well, I read that they were throwing Muslims off of rooftops and rounding them up and just shooting them. And
that was the true statement. They were doing all the gruesome things, not just the rooftops. They would come in.
And they established concentration camps. And
that's true. There was, so during the war, which was kind of interesting, all the eligible 17 to 70 or whatever, male and female for that matter, were enlisted. You had to be part of the military, you like it or not. And I end up, because I was a ham radio, that was my internet those old days, end up working in the communication side of the military, and then end up doing some sort of we split group between two groups, between the doing military, strictly communication stuff, and then I was assigned to do a POW exchange and doing a lot of negotiation things with the folks on the other side. So we will be establishing communications, and then folks from the military will come over to our location and they would talk on the radio and do all of that stuff. So,
and these are people that are formerly your neighbors that you broke bread with.
It's the guy who taught me everything that I know about the ham radio was on the other side. And he would, when you're in a ham radio, which is today is like a FaceTime or whatever you want to call it, you knew people by the voice. You could recognize people's voices because you're there every day. So you kind of get, if you're listening to your radio talk show host, by voice that's them. You don't need to know what the name of the show is. I mean, I'm sure your voice is now with your podcast so familiar. So if people hear your voice, they know it's your podcast. So in ham radio, that's how you would distinguish. You didn't even need to call somebody's name. You kind of knew who it was. And so that was my neighbor, my friend, the kid I went to school with. And I know a big majority of these people didn't want to leave. But the way how the things turned out, the families left. So you had to kind of follow. A lot of them I know, they didn't want to be a part of it, but they also had thrown into that as forcibly, because you were young and you can fight.
And I know some chose to fight on your side as well.
True. There's a lot of people that stayed. And till this day, there's a lot of people in town who I know were with us at that time, stay there. Things getting back to normal somewhat these days, but people remember those days, You can never forget who was on the other side shooting at you, even though nowadays it's kind of free. You go back and forth, but some people returned, some people didn't return. A lot of those guys stayed in the other towns and resettled where they were.
And I understand that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that not only were people forced out of their homes, but then the homes became occupied. And
by the other side, refugees,
by the other
yes.
side, and then if you owned a home that was occupied, or land for that matter, that you had to, that there was a court, there was hearings, but it's still, once you reclaimed your property, the people that had occupied stole everything and dismantled the home.
Well, funny that you say that. So we were under siege for 6 months, no in, no out. There was one way, we call it the Lifeline Road, that took us back through the mountains, and it used to be the wood cutting road. So people used to, put a wood for the wood industry, or whatever you want to call it. And then some of the military's old roads were out, and that's how we went out. So After fighting for 6 months or so, we couldn't hold the siege anymore, so we had to leave. We literally, so when you posted the other day on Facebook to say there's anything creepy that it kind of brings you memories, it was the night when we had to leave. That was the October 27, 1992, when the town got an order to evacuate. And Susan, it was the graveyard silence. Like, fighting stopped that afternoon. It was very intense for like a week. And all of a sudden, everything, when the dark came, October, so probably getting dark around 4:30, 5 o'clock there. And all of a sudden, the silence hit. So we start loading people on the big trucks and whatever you could find and get them out as soon as early. So I left. I walked out of the town with the last maybe 100 people out. And that was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And it was such an eerie scene. It's just so quiet. Everything is abandoned. There were lights at all because we were cut off the electricity and water and everything. And I remember hugging my brother and giving him a high five and say, see you on the other side, because he was on the front lines as well. So you didn't know who's going to make it, who's not going to make it. I didn't see my parents at all. I know they were safe and left town, but I didn't know when I'm going to see them. So we evacuated out, and then I walked the following night close to about 30 kilometers, which is about maybe 20 miles. Started in 4 in the afternoon through the night till about 6 in the morning to get on the other side through that lifeline road with many, many others.
And women and children and
yeah, everybody. We tried to put old folks and people who couldn't walk onto the cars and trucks, but anybody who could walk, and it was, at that time I was 22, 23. We walked, literally, and we walked and we joked and sang, and and to try to keep your mind off of it, and we walked literally
without
through the night.
any of your belongings. No,
I literally had a backpack with pairs of clothes, maybe extra underwear and socks, and an extra pair of shoes, because I had like a hiking boots on because you had to be in a field, so, and that was it. And I walked out. We went to the town over called Travnik, which was the bigger town, first biggest town. And I didn't know where my parents are. I didn't know where my brother is. I ended up going to the Ham Radio Communication Center where I knew people. They gave me a bed and some food, and I really crashed. And I slept for 12 hours straight till somebody woke me up and said, hey, by the way, your parents are in so and so and so place. They want to see you, So I walked, and we all cried, and say, at least we have each other and we'll figure out what this means, because we didn't have a family outside of any towns anywhere else. I had the family in Sarajevo. Of course, they were under siege. And the following morning, everybody met at like a school or high school. You kind of end up being a mass of 30,000 people trying to figure out where to go, what to do, So we end up going to nearby town, bigger town called Zenica, which is in the central part of the country. And another ham radio friend again offered his house to host my family. And through some friends, we found his best buddy who was Catholic, who was saying, hey, we have the vacation home out of town, like in a little village. If your parents sit there, at least people not going to ransack it. Might as well just put them there. It's going to be... And my folks loved it. They lived on the countryside. They had their own vegetable gardens, and all that. And that was all cool for about a year when the front line between Muslims and Catholics started. That's when that whole mess started in like a late 92, early 93. Actually, mid of 93, because we left in October of 92. And that was just literally on the other side of the hill. And I already left the southern part of the country, which is Herzegovina part of the Bosnian Herzegovina, and I moved to the town closer to Mostar and Medjugorje, where it's a Virgin Mary pilgrimage place now. My roommate from my college in Sarajevo lived there, so I moved and stayed with them.
So was it, here you are having to make this exodus, meanwhile, the place you're leaving, people are being rounded up, there's rape camps, they're stealing young girls, people are being herded into concentration camps. How did, as a 22-year-old, was that in the back of your mind, like, my friends are being slaughtered, and why am I not being slaughtered? Was there a part of you that had that thing going on? How were you able to leave? And
so the idea was to try, when that night came and we had to all evacuate, we literally, all the younger folks who were military and people were able to, literally went to house door to doors and tried to get everybody out. And, there were some people that decided to stay. And there were majority of the people that stayed in our town were older folks who decided not to leave, and they're going to face the music, if you will. And at that point, you just hear these guessings of what happened over there. I know that my aunt's sister stayed, and I don't think they still found her yet. She was on the older side. Back home, there's this myth of if you pass 60, you consider old, which is kind of weird, but whatever.
But there are still thousands of people unaccounted
that's
for.
True, and then a lot of them were either. So on those situations where the first people that came through from the Serb side was the special forces or whatever, these guys didn't care. The white eagles or red caps or whatever you want to call it, the eagles. And they would come through the town, ransack everything that they would possibly ransack, kill, rape, whatever they would do. And in the majority of the cases, some other locals came back. So when the locals came back, they, depending on the nature of the people, some of them were protecting the older folks that would stay there, although they were treated as second-grade citizens. They were not let out of the house. They would not have a food, and all the empty homes got ransacked. So our house, literally, they took the light switches off the walls. They took everything possible in the houses. They were taking the tubs out of the things. In our house, unfortunately, they didn't do that. But, so there was just, and you hear this, and everybody was trying to account for everybody. Where this person is. There's this. So, and everybody eventually dispersed in so many different directions that it took years to reconcile the families, the friends.
I had a woman on the show, Dr. Stedman. Her specialty is mass grave forensics, and she talked about doing the research and finding the locations of some of the mass graves, and then the arduous task, of course, of naming the people. The DNA, and it's on one point of my brain is saying yes, like, humans do these things. But then there's this other part of my brain that says, Enes was 22 years old studying maths, and then in 1 second, the entire world gets turned upside down. And how it's so hard to wrap my brain around that, the things that you've had to understand and assimilate and shift and pray to God you don't get killed. I mean, the level of stress, I can't even imagine.
To me, adrenaline rush is adrenaline rush. I mean, so during the siege, we didn't have water for 6 months. We didn't have electricity for 6 months.
And many starved.
Yeah, and then luckily luckily with the light thing, we were under siege from May to October, which is the harvest season majority back home. So a lot of vegetables gardens start growing. All this was, so you end up eating chives because that's the only thing left, or raw lettuce. I mean, if everybody wants to Google it and look it up, the pictures of my hometown, and I don't know if you've seen it on my Facebook page, there's a beautiful waterfall in the middle of the town. I mean, it's 100-foot waterfall. It's one of the only towns in the world where you have a waterfall in a downtown. And people would go to the river to get water but that was Sniper Alley. So, you had to go there at night. We buried friends. I lost one of my dearest best friends in the world during the war. He was 22 years old and was at the wrong place at the wrong time with the shrapnel directly into his heart. We had to bury him at 3 o'clock in the morning because the graveyard was exposed to the hill where these guys were. So you can't be there in the middle of the day, and so many people died for, you turn the film back and say, for what?
For what, exactly?
There's so many. So you and I are talking. Today is January, June 27th.
It might be January. I don't have lost complete track.
But it's in June 27th, and in 2 weeks' time, it's going to be 23-year anniversary of the Srebrenica massacre.
Which is no time at all. It's barely a blip.
I know, but you talk about mass grave that Serbs to even today deny that we didn't do it. So there's a lot of that. We didn't do it. I don't know how all these people got killed. Really? What about all these videos?
Well, most of it ended up at The Hague, right? They tried him.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they're still saying, we didn't do it. I don't know who did it. But I feel for all these families. There's families that lost everyone. There's only mother that survived, lost a husband, 5 kids, 6 kids. Srebrenica is one, that's the largest one. But there were so many other towns, there's a town of Prijedor, which is northwest of, close to Banja Luka, where one day they killed the kids out of 3 months old to anybody. They were just ransacked and killed it. There's Ahmići village, which was really close in the central Bosnia, where Croats came into the Muslim village and ransacked it overnight and killed and did everybody for some whatever revenge that they got lost on some. So to look who did what. I'm saying there's all 3 sides did it. Don't get me wrong, because it was the war but the others did it more so than some others, So it's just unfortunate, as you said. And now you're 22 years old, trying to figure out to wrap your brain around it. What am I doing? How do I do this? So after leaving all of that, settling my parents, I moved to southern part of the country and waking up with what was it? It was right after New Year's, 92 or 93. My next door neighbor guy comes over and say, "Hey, come on over. There's a lady having a cup of coffee in my house. I want you to meet." I was like, "Dude, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing?" Sunday morning. So he said, come on over. You speak English, so we need a translator. I said, okay. And I met this lady named Nancy Green. She used to work for International Rescue Committee. She came to town and looking for somebody to do the translating because they were to open the office. At that time, UNHCR was there. Everybody in the world was there trying to help to bring the relief and. So I ended up getting a job with the IRC, which is a great organization, as a translator. So I did that almost for a year and a half, almost 2 years, going and helping. And so now you take a look at from this side. You're the person who is displaced. You don't have your own home, but you're fortunate enough that you have friends, roommates from college. This family, that's my second mom and dad. I will never forget them for the rest of my life. We're still close even today. They take me in their home and we did what we had to do. But then I ended up going through those convoys, delivering the food and the shelter materials to the refugee centers.
And that took some time because the UN wouldn't step in for quite a while.
Yeah, so the military UN kind of came in right away, but the relief side took a while because Serbs were resisting it. They would not let them in Sarajevo, for example. And it was scarce. You got to open for a week. The road gets closed, and then the airlifts and all of the other stuff. But eventually, in 93, a lot of things were established as far as the relief side. So I ended up doing a lot of translating, driving, with Nancy. I'm going to these refugee camps. You walk in a school gym because that's the only place you could call refugee center. And there's 10,000 people sleeping there, have a 2-bathroom to use. They're forced out of their homes. They don't have anybody else to go. Some of these people were people living in some villages. They didn't even know that the cars exist or something, because they were so up in the mountains and stuff. And then you try to help them and then you in between. I was that between person between the refugee and the world people who are trying to help. And I felt good to try to give back as much as I get, but I also feel guilty because I was getting paid for the work. I'm not saying there was a lot of money, but it felt really great to be able to help people, even bringing the food, the whatever they needed, medical supplies, the things. And so I did that there, and then all of a sudden the war between Muslims and Croats broke down, started it. So a lot of things got shut down again. A lot of roads, a lot of stuff got shut down. So I stayed in town. Nancy left to split Croatia. Majority of the people were there.
What was the tipping point to start that? Did you catch that? Did you hear the voice? It was speaking right below my voice. When I was editing this, so I go through and listen to the whole episode to make sure there's no computer glitches, or if somebody has a coughing attack, I take that out. As far as dialogue, everything you hear is what happened. I don't edit out what people are saying. It's just technical for glitches and things. So last night I was going through it in real time, and I got to that moment and I heard that voice, and the hair on my neck stood up. And I went back and I listened to it. I listened to it again. And I thought, I think somebody is saying hi, but I couldn't make out the second word. And then it occurred to me on Enes's Facebook page, there's 3 names listed. And so I reached out to him. It was very late, but he answered. And I said, hey, do you recall that you had told me that you had a nickname when you were young in Bosnia that everybody called you, that everybody back home knows you by? And he said, yeah. And I said, how do you pronounce that name? And he said, Cira. It would be pronounced as if Tseerah. And then I went back and listened. What was the tipping point to start that? I swear it says, hi, Cira, in a very low voice. And I sent that to him, and he listened, and he thinks so too. And then he told me when they were burying people in the village at night, one of the people he buried was his best friend. I mean, I'm not a Ghostbuster or anything like that, but I swear it seems to me that his friend reached through the electronics or something to say hello. Let's see what you think. I'm going to play it again and just keep playing it through, but I wanted to make a note of it because I thought it was so fascinating. All right, let's get back to the interview.
A lot of roads, a lot of stuff got shut down. So I stayed in town. Nancy left to split Croatia. Majority of the people were there.
What was the tipping point to start that war?
What was that, sorry?
What started what was the tipping point for?
If you look at there's a really great documentary for people that want to see. It's called The Death of the Nation. And it's done by Christian Amanpour and a few other people in CNN and Discovery Channel and BBC. And it's a 3-part series. And it's on Netflix, used to be. I don't know if it's still there. It dissects the Yugoslavian war and it's really real, and it's true, and everything. There's really, it's, so it was a grab for the land. Essentially, that was the deal. If you read that through the history, the Serbs, or the Orthodox Serbs, are very traditional military organ people. Most of the officers in military were Serbs, police officers, anything related to the military kind of thing, that's there kind of in their blood generationally, And through the history of times, during the World War II, you had this fraction of the Serbs were on the Nazi side. Same in the Croatians, they were on the Nazi side. And then you had the partisans with Tito and all of that. But there was always that motto, if you read through the history, they said what the Serbs always used to say, that the Serbia is everywhere where the Serb live. So that was their motto to keep the land during the war. So they took a bunch of, they owned about 50, almost 60% of Bosnia at a time. And so the Croats in the southern part kind of created this little country called Bosnia that they wanted to do the same thing. So all the municipalities where the Catholics or Bosnian Croats were in charge, had the mayor or whatever, they controlled that. So you had these three parties. I have a map from the war. It's kind of funky. But everybody wanted to have their own. And so if you're not one of them, they would try to kick you out. And so everything started in Mostar, kind of all of that started. It was crazy. And then we used to joke and say, the party of who's drinking and who's paying for it is started. And nobody knew who's paying for all the drinks, whatever. It was just a mess. Mostar was such a beautiful town with the old bridge that was built during the Ottoman Empire in 1400, so whatever that may be. That town was split in half. The front line was right on the other side of the river. People were killing neighbors because the Muslims got stuck on the east side of the river. The Catholics were on the left side. The east side was under siege. It's crazy. I ended up being in Mostar on the day when the bridge got bombed and blown up. And Susan, I can't even tell you, it hurt my eyes and my heart to see that historic piece of art crumble into the river. But you will go back to the buildings after that of the town that is torn up. The dead bodies everywhere. Hospital has the size of maybe 2 basements full of people that missing arms. You see the 3-year-old kid walking with no arm or leg. It hurts. Your heart hurts, And I was in and out because of the UN work. You could go in, you can go out. And you see 50,000 people sobbing on that day because the bridge was blown up. And then they rebuild it now and it looks almost the same, but it's not. And then you look it back and you say, for what?
For what? I was watching a documentary and I saw a mosque that was from the 1500s that, they bombed, they destroyed it. And I thought, how can any person with a soul, clearly, how can any person with a soul do any of these atrocities, period, end of sentence? But you're blowing up these buildings that have been around for hundreds upon hundreds, in some cases 1,000. It's insanity. And for what? It's like if you were to go to Trader Joe's and then in 10 minutes you're in the store, suddenly everyone turns on you, and you are faced with having to shoot, Grocer Bob because he worships at a different altar, which is really the same altar.
Yep. It's kind of weird. And what's worse though, it's like we're in a time right now where racial and social injustice time, and there's difference in this country, obviously, and around the world. But during that time, everybody looked the same.
Yeah.
Everybody is white. Let's just put it out there. The only difference is I could tell by the first name or last name,
right,
which, are you Muslim, are you Catholic, are you Orthodox or whatever. But that doesn't really matter. Like in my hometown, when we left, the first thing the Serbs did, they blow up the mosque. A mosque was built in 1480 or something. Granted, mosque is rebuilt. It looks the same, but it's not the same thing. You know, Orthodox Church got blown up by some freaks while we were there, and we felt disgusted that this little tiny church, it was a piece of art, is blown up. Now they're working on it, trying to rebuild it. Great. I can't wait for the day to go back home and see it standing. It's in my neighborhood. You know, it's down the street from my house. But it's just, it's everywhere has been like that. You would think you would hold on to that, but no, that was the deal on any sides. They would blow up churches. You know, Serbs blowing up a lot of mosques everywhere. You know, it's just the same thing happened on the other side. A lot of people, they lost towns and they felt revenge. They did it on churches, you know, but
it's just insane.
It's just insane. It's crazy. But now everybody's go back to church and, you know, and worship the Ramadan, end of Ramadans and Christmases and Easters and, you know, Hanukkahs, and everything is back to normal. But it's just,
I was reading about a symbol that seems to get spray painted around a lot, the 4C symbol. So I don't think it's normal.
So the 4Cs is what I said to you in relation to every Serb lives where Serbia is everywhere where the Serb lives. So that's the meaning of it. So you would see 3 fingers listed during the 3 fingers. I mean, a lot of people who lost somebody in the war, and when somebody does that, it hurts. Even for me to see that on TV these days, I don't like it. But you know, it is what it is, and you try to kind of
It's akin to the white nationalists here.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And you may forgive, but you will never forget. You know, so that's just the things that. So, you know, so you move on and.
How long were you in the refugee camp? How long were you doing that for?
So originally, I was in a refugee camp for a very short period of time because I got a job with the IRC and ended up doing that work. But then, when the Muslims and Catholics start fighting, I was stationed in Medjugorje at the time. For those people that want to look up, it's the southwest corner of Bosnia. It's a huge pilgrimage these days for the Virgin Mary appearance, you know, and it's a land of rocks and heat, sun. There's really nothing else there, but the whole of that part of the country is really more southern, and it's hot during the summer, and so I was there, and it was really intense for a while. A lot of people died. A lot of Muslim people ended up in concentration camps again with the Catholics, you know, and back and forth. And so I had the opportunity to apply for a resettlement with the IRC, and that was in May of '94. So I got accepted based on I was displaced. I didn't have a place to go. You know, that was the criteria, and you know, they checked whatever you needed to. So, and I left Bosnia on May 24th, 1994. Never been on a plane. Talk about the eerie question that you posted the other day again. That morning, getting up at 4 a.m. to meet at this little parking lot where the bus was taking us to the Split airport because it was organized. You pull up there's a police officers cornering that parking lot, giving you a stare, escorting you to the airport. People at the airport were happy that you're leaving, you know, a lot of sad faces, a lot of crying. I get on the airplane. I've never been on the airplane. I don't know where I'm going. I mean, you're going to United States, but how do you getting there? It's kind of, okay, I'm going to board this plane. I end up in Rome, you know, at the airport. First time, I mean, luckily for me, I spoke a little bit of English because I did that as a translator, so I could kind of get around. But remember those days in the early 90s, you could be at the terminal and you need to be interviewed before you get on the airplane. What do you have? What do you carry? I was the only one speaking English out of the group of 300. So I actually was asked by one of those security people to translate for them to do the question. And I did that. You do it in the heart of, you're trying to help your own people. I'll never forget the lady, Francesca. She said, is there anything I can do for you? I said, I would like to have a double espresso, please. I mean, it's just like some piece of normalcy, I mean, she walked me up to one of those bars at the airport in Rome, and on very quick Italian, as they all do, said something to the bartender, and he looked at me in terms of English, said, you need anything, just let me know. She took care of it. So I had like a couple espressos that day, been waiting for my flight to board TWA. I don't know if kids these days know what TWA is, the airline. And that was the flight from Rome to New York. So you end up on the airplane. You do a transcontinental flight, 10 hours, 11 hours, whatever that is. Again, you're the only one who speaks English. There's a lot of flight attendant buttons going on. The ladies go up to ask these people what it is. They come to me and ask me what they want. So I couldn't even sleep that night. You're so tired. You're so exhausted emotionally. You're leaving everything that you know. You're going somewhere which you don't know where it is. Granted, you're 23 years old, whatever. The new life, I'm young, I'll start some, I'll figure it out, Got to New York, you get there, how you go through customs. They said, U.S. citizens here, non-U.S. go here. They see us with a little bag that says IOM, which stands for International Organizations for Migrations. And in that bag was all your file with all the documents. And they point a finger at you and say, you go over there. So you're in this line, and INS was taking all these bags, and they give you the little white piece of paper that you fill it out when you're coming back with the visa, I-94, and said, welcome to the United States. Don't lose this. And there's a feeling you're just like, okay, I can do whatever I want, And granted to IRC, that it's a great resettlement program. They have people meet you there, and then so everybody was leaving to different parts of the country where their final destination is.
What happened if you had, because you all had to leave in the middle of the night, with one backpack? You don't have birth certificates. You don't really have documentation. You don't have any of that stuff.
No, none. Only what you have is whatever you had in that file that you interviewed with the IRC officers and INS, because they were representatives from the U.S. Embassy in Croatia there. And when you got there, you got that little piece of paper, which everybody who knows what I'm talking about. It's the pathway to the green card. And the IRC staff on U.S. soil would meet you and then disperse you to the gates of the airplanes to your final destination.
And they pick where you're going to live.
It's already decided before you even came.
Yeah.
It's so based on where the acceptance is, where they can accept people, that's where they decide. So at the time, I didn't know this, but there is also, during the process, they always say, do you know anybody who can help you to be your help or whatever? I used to work with this guy named Mark Bartolini, very nice gentleman. He lives in Point Reyes, just on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge. And we were working for IRC at the time. He was in a different capacity there, and we were very close. And he told me, even then, it's like, dude, why don't you just go to US, check it out. And if you don't like it, you can always come back. But at least you have a green card and you can always go back to US. It doesn't matter, So funny that I mentioned that is that I come and my flight destination was San Francisco. So I was like, okay, there's another 6-hour flight. I don't know where I'm going. So you board that flight. The IRC person walks you to the gate, said, here's your ticket, here's your paperwork. Don't lose this, Good luck to you, So you jump on this plane, again, TWA. It's kind of funny. And I land to San Francisco. It's 11:30 at night. You're a normal domestic flight. Nothing. I'm getting out of the plane. I don't know where I'm going. I don't have any luggage. I have the little bag. That's it. I come out on the terminal, and guess what? Mark is standing there with the lady from IRC office in Francisco. Her name is Leslie. And she said, "Oh boy, the trouble is here." And that was the first day I arrived. So we drove across the Golden Gate Bridge in the dark, and he took me to his house. And I spent 2-3 days there just to kind of with him because he was the only person I knew. But I'm lucky. All the other people, they don't know anybody. They just end up, the IRC people would welcome them. And what I like about that program is that they find you a place to live. They give you a fork, knife, spoon, one plate, a bed, a place to live. They used to give us $50 a week for the food. They paid for your apartment. And then they will try, based on what you tell them, what your background is, try to find you a job. For the people who didn't speak a lick of English, they would be signed up to go to night schools, to do ESL classes and things of that nature. So Mark dropped me off a couple of days later to the IRC office where, I was talking to these guys, and they said, "Well, you got to go meet your roommate." And so the kid was from Mostar. We never met, and he was a Bosnian. We lived in a studio, 2 of us, in the middle of the Tenderloin in San Francisco. And everybody's like, "Oh my God, you're in the worst part of town." It's like, wow, war, Tenderloin, what's the difference? I mean, you end up being there, got a job in a week in Silicon Valley, and the rest of it's history. It's crazy. I mean, the life, I was talking to my wife the other day. It's like, it's been 26 years. And I'm at the point that I am more here than I was there. So the question becomes, what do you call home? So home is always going to be home. There's a special place in my heart for back home. But this is the new home. This is where I started a family. This is the new life. So it took a long time to get to this point. But going back on this journey with you, reminiscing all these 26 years and change, it's kind of interesting to go back and try it. I'm sure there's many people that can relate to this. There's a lot of people that came where I came, or from many parts of the world, that had the harder times. They were part of the concentration camps. They were beaten up. They were almost killed. They starved to death. Some of them lost arms, legs, but they're happy they're alive. And there was a place to welcome them to start the new life, So it's just, I'm grateful, you got to look I like to forget what it was, and move on and try to do the best life you can do,
And how many children do you have?
We have a 1-year-old, one boy who is 17-year-old. His name is Ismet, which is my grandfather's first name. Everybody calls him Izzy. And he got the nickname by my dad. It says Izzy Busy. So, and he's really busy. So, And my wife, Lane, who is born and raised in California, so we've been here she's been here since college of Berkeley, went to Berkeley and State. But we live in Oakland, which is, talk about the diverse town. Love the city. Love Bay Area. Bay Area is a wonderful place to live. I know it's unfortunate, it's very expensive and a lot of people cannot afford, but talk about the diversity, different cultures, different music scenes, food, anything. I just loved it. Loved it.
I assume since he's 17, you have had these conversations with Izzy, but does he have a desire to go and see his history? And do you have a desire to go back, or is it too painful?
So what my wife and I made a deal, actually, she was the one actually insisted on this, is that when he was born, we said that we're going to go as much as we can so he can learn about the culture. So that kid has been to Europe 10, 11 times. So we go every other year. We went when he was 1. So we were supposed to be there this summer. So this is our year. It's an even year. But we didn't go. But we did that on purpose till he is at least 18, that he can make the travel on his own. And he already told us, next summer I'm going by myself. I don't need you guys. My brother's still there, so he's like, I can hang out with my uncle, and my mom still lives there. My dad passed away years ago, but mom is still there. We go and stay with her, and he loves it. I mean, it's a different, and he loves, and he understands the culture. And you had the Mr. Green on your show, who is the history teacher at Izzy's high school, and I get to know him because he invited me to present in his class on the same subject about the refugees in World War One because of the Franz Ferdinand and Sarajevo connection. And, Izzy loves history, so he wants to go and learn about all this stuff. And it took a while, I guess, till he was in the middle school, till he can understand the reminiscences of the war and what it means. Because even when you drive now, there's still parts of the country that people didn't came back. That it's not rebuilt. The houses are still burned. There's signs that says minefields, don't enter. That it's going to take a long, long time to get that all clear out and to do all this crazy stuff,
When America says things about we don't want refugees, they're all a bunch of murderers and rapists and this, that, how do you feel when you hear that sort of thing?
It hurts because we are not refugees. Here's the problem that lately everything is being jumbled into this group of refugee word. And so immigrant status is a little bit different depending which way. Political asylum people are not the refugees. I mean, they are refugees, but they are different kind of refugees versus the pure refugee who, my case, or all these cases of people in Syria, Yemen, Myanmar with all the craziness, they all uprooted from their homes and kicked out, and there's no place to go. And U.S. was the country of refugees, essentially, that welcome everybody. And now you hear, I still stay in touch with IRC. So we support as much as we can. And we work with local offices, and they keep me abreast of what's going on. And then 2 years ago, you had 100,000 refugees allotment for a year to bring it in. This year, they slashed it to less than 15, and they're talking about even less than that. It's like, why? It's those people are come here, they integrate in the society, they want to start new life, they go to schools, they graduate, they get the degrees, they're contributing, and they're legal. It's not even illegal. You get the paperwork, you get your Social Security. I just read, a very good friend of ours works for au pair agency, and I just read that visas were shut down for all these kids to come this summer to help. It just really hurts. And I wish our government or whoever is deciding that should look at through the different set of binoculars or glasses or eyes, whatever you want to call it, and give these people a chance to start all over again and contribute to the society, to go to schools, give somebody a chance. Those families who have never been educated, maybe somebody will go to college, become a doctor, say engineer, whatever they may be, teacher. We need teachers in this country, to contribute. And that really hurts. I feel bad. I feel fortunate that I'm here, but when I came, it was a different time. History has its own turns, or I guess in a history book, if you turn page, you never know what you're going to read. Things change day to day, to year, a different story. So I really feel sorry for these people. I wish we could be better and at least welcome these people with open arms and help them out,
Yes. I agree with you. Absolutely.
I mean, they need a new start. They suffered enough. You look at, remember those scenes of those refugees on those islands in Greece, kids dying. I mean, I seen it all. Years ago, I went to the live event where IRC organized. There's a documentary by this lady that she went into the 3 refugee camps in Lebanon and Jordan and did to follow 3 families to see, and at the end of the movie, which was really powerful and kind of brought a lot of memories for me, I asked her the question saying, what is the specific that you can remember when you go back to those refugee camps? But she said, the smell. And I can relate to that because I can tell you that every refugee center where it's a large amount of people, you walk in, that smell is something that if you've never been, you actually stays with you. So you can, and it's not bad, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot of people. It's a stale air, and a lot of people crying. There's babies crying, people crying. People are happy, kids running around. There's all these noises, and then you have the smell thing, and it's just so relatable. As a refugee, that was one thing that I could relate to these people. I've been there, done it. I got a T-shirt, I used to joke, I have a T-shirt with a couple of bullet holes on it, but that's okay. But, you got to have a better outlook on life and try to help these people as much as you can, So I try. We try to teach Izzy the morals and put him on the right path. And, that's only what you really can do. And welcome people, try to help anybody you can, So.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what race, what color, what beliefs, we all are the same, more or less. If you believe one thing or the other, that's a personal thing and good for you. And if we don't, we have to be kind and treat everybody equal. And you can be different. We can disagree. We can argue. We don't have to agree, but at the end of the day, we should all sit at the same table and have a drink together. Doesn't really matter if it's a coffee or a tea or a beer or wine or whatever that is, or a glass of water for that matter. And you and I are talking right now. We never met.
That's right.
And we have a connection, and it's Mr. Green, and it's just really awesome. I think, and I'm very open. Was very flattered that you said, "Can we talk?"
Oh, it's my honor, and this show has brought me so many gifts. Most importantly, the fact that I get to look at you and all the different people I speak with and see me. I can put me in your situation in a way. Not really, because it's hard to fathom, but as a human being, I see you and I say, this person who is me.
Oh, absolutely. It's just it's just crazy to just go look back. People try to relate to, like, all my friends that I know. When I came here, a lot of people welcomed me, and the sports bar where Lynn and I met was the first place I always go on Friday nights and have a beer, play a pool. And I met this group of people, Stephanie, Laura, Carol, Peter. They were all kids the same age. We were same age. They didn't care. Stephanie took me to the first baseball game. It was A's Red Sox in Memorial Day weekend in Oakland. Joe DiMaggio was throwing the first pitch. And I caught the foul ball. Never been to and everybody is like, what's going on here? And she called me a damn foreigner. And I signed the ball, damn foreigner, and she still has it on her desk. But they're my friends. Laura, who is the lovely friend, her mom owns the children's bookstore in San Jose. They welcomed me for the first Thanksgiving dinner ever. I can never forget that. So we all relate to each other one way or another. If you're kind and willing and kind person, we shouldn't be looking like is a color, is a race, is a religious belief. Who cares? your friends are friends, and you cherish those friendships for the rest of your life. So.
Amen.
I know, it's kind of crazy. And you look back and you meet new people, and that's what the circle of life is all about. And
Yeah.
I'm sure some people are bitter of the things that happen. They have a tough time. When we came here, there was a lot of guys who've been in a concentration camp, and they were bitter for years. And I can understand that. The scars are really too deep. You talk about the PTSD. It is a huge PTSD talk. I don't know how much time we have, but I'll just tell you one story that is really creepy. Is that, so 1994, you in San Francisco, I'm working, it's October, so you know what that is. That's Fleet Week in Bay Area, Saturday morning, I'm sleeping, jets fly over. I jump out of the bed sweating, literally. And I was like, what the hell's going on? Sorry.
No, you can, sir.
And I said, oh my God, what's going on? Why the planes? And I looked through the window and to myself, I said, oh, they're different color. And the reason why I say that is that my hometown during the siege got bombed by the airplanes 5 days, every day, for 2 weeks or 3 weeks straight. They were dropping napalm bombs trying to hit the hospital to burn the hospital. My girlfriend at the time was a doctor. I was in a hospital, go visit her. She would give me gloves and told me to hold somebody's piece of arm so she can stitch it up. So PTSD is real. And to me, relatable was the airplane. And I still I tell that story to Izzy, and he laughs because he can't relate to it, So, but every time I see Blue Angels, it's like, oh, hi, friends. Thanks for coming by. And now I know who you are, But it was weird. But it just really. So talk about the bitter or talk about the scars, or there are certain things I will watch the movies and the things will trigger. Angelina Jolie movie about the women's being raped, and that was one terrible thing that Serbs did. They would rape young women, or doesn't matter, women of age, and they would keep them hostage to the past time of the abortion, and they would release them. All these women delivered those babies, and they put them up some of them were put them up for the adoptions because they just couldn't bear to have that reminder. Some kept it, It's just it was a terrible time, and you would think people will learn, but here we go again. Syria has been happening for how many years now? Yemen. I'm sure there's going to be one day somebody else going to decide to do the same thing. This COVID thing brings an anxiety and an unknown to a lot of people. We find ourselves confined. We all of a sudden spending a lot more time than the families ever did together because this society is so busy. A lot of poor people will not have food, money to put the food on the table. That's going to I'm not talking here. Look at the rest of the world. Look at Brazil, what's happening. Europe
Venezuela. Yeah,
so the poor part of the world is going to hit the hardest because hospitals are not developed. Like my hometown, even though Bosnia is somewhat back on track and but their health system is really weak. So they're literally restricted. Like anybody over 65 could not get out, period. They would actually have police hour to ban anybody under 18 and over 65 for 2 months. They couldn't get out. You could go out in your yard, but that was it. So only people between 17 and 65 were able to walk out between 8 and 5 in the afternoon. Because the reason they did that, they didn't want to do that because hospitals cannot handle. And granted, they only had 400 cases or something. 400 people died out of 3 million people. So it's, but they opened the borders again. Here we go again.
Yeah.
And vicious cycle. But again, we cannot stop living. So.
This is true, and I think, unfortunately, this virus has its own plans.
That's really so true. There's nothing. Hopefully, the medical society figure these
I think
things
they're
out.
working very, very, very hard to try and figure it out. And I hope so too. And
Yeah,
it's
we
how
have a
might
friend.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I know we have friends with the doctors, and they're really working. And I mean, those guys work so hard,
I know.
and a lot of people don't even see behind that all what it takes. But they also they don't want to see people in the hospitals. They want people to be out and about and be happy again. You know. So.
Sure. So strange days, and unfortunately, strange days have been throughout history.
I'm happy to, and I said I'm happy to talk to anybody. You know, just if for the research purposes and to bring one more thing, kind of connection to what you're saying, to find famous people or people did forensics. Condoleezza Rice, we all know who she is. The kid that I used to work together in Bosnia and did the translating, he also came same time and I did, and he ended up going to Stanford and finished the school and graduated from there and did the MBA there and met Condoleezza Rice because he had this Bosnian club, whatever. And when she came to visit on her official trip to Sarajevo, she called him and she said, "Hey, you have a time to have a cup of coffee?" He said, "Yeah, come on over." And they really close friends. And she came out and met him in town. You know, imagine all the freakiness with the security people. But she loved that culture. A lot of people love the culture, Bosnian culture. The Bosnian culture is so welcoming. You know, the Turkish coffee, the baklavas for everybody, that it's really different than Greek one. Then you have the pies and everything. Everybody loves it. And people are kind. And that's what it's all about. And they don't care who you are as long as you are a good soul.
Yeah, I spent some time in Croatia, Montenegro, and Turkey in 2011, and it's stunningly beautiful. That part of the world.
Croatia is gorgeous. I mean, for a lot of people, I don't know where in Croatia you were, but, you know, that was our summer vacations. We would all go down there because it was part of Yugoslavia, and that was the thing. You know, we used to have a joke. How do you recognize the Bosnian lady on the bikini on the beach? They said, "Oh, she has the mark from the coffee grinder." Because the reason why I say that, Bosnian culture, it's like some other cultures. As soon as you walk somebody's home, the pot for Turkish coffee goes onto the stove. And they use those coffee grinders that look like the pepper grinders. And there's always somebody sitting in the corner and grinding, you know. And so that was always a joke. You can recognize Bosnian people because they have a mark from the grinder, you know. You know, the culture is, you know, you probably saw it. People are fine and welcoming. And
when I think of that part of the world, if I'm not thinking about the war-torn part, if I'm just thinking about the people, I picture, it's always the same. I picture a big table with lots of food and coffee and little shot glasses with the yellow liquor.
You mean this?
Yeah, and everyone's laughing and talking and smoking and having a big time. That's what I see.
And then that's what it is. The Bosnian culture, it's kind of funny. The parties are all sitting parties. Nobody's standing. Everybody's sitting around the table, and then it's a million different conversations are going, and you cannot even see somebody because there's so much smoke going on. I mean, you live in LA, there's a place called Sofra Urbana that it's kind of Glendale-ish, kind of somewhere inland a little bit, Burbank-ish. That's a Bosnian restaurant. They have really great Bosnian food. There's also a place close to, very close to Beverly Hills. They're by the museum, the Jewish museum over there. And it's on the backside of it. It's called Cafe Aroma, that it serves the Bosnian food. So if you're in that neighborhood, swing by it.
Okay.
I'll send you the link on Facebook.
When everything opens up again.
Yep. I mean, so it's the food that's what brings people. And I'm sure you're going to see the same folks that look alike the same and they all interact the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we are the same. Dang it.
We are.
Enes, thank you. What I do at the end of these is I listen through to make sure there's no weird blips or anything on the computer. And I write down anything that you've referenced, like places or things or movies or whatnot. May people reach out to you? Should they follow you on Facebook or?
They can do that. They can reach out. I didn't Yeah, they can reach out to me on Facebook. That's if they have questions. I'm happy to talk to anybody. And there's so much history that you could reference to. Like my hometown, especially, as I mentioned to you before, that's the last place where the last Bosnian king was killed in 1462. It's the place where the Yugoslavia, as a known Yugoslavia country, was formed in 1943 because they had this big meeting during the war. So there's so much meaningful to that little tiny town that it's in the middle of nowhere, as like the people, but it's beautiful. You see the picture. I mean, it's people travel through the country. I would definitely tell them to stop and visit. They used to call it Continental Dubrovnik of the old Yugoslavia. So they have 2 lakes, 3 rivers. There's so much history there. We have a castle. I grew up right next to the castle. If you see the picture, that it's built in 800s. So it's crazy. But definitely, Death of the Nation would be one of the things that I would recommend. That it's documentary. The Angelina Jolie movie was really good. To reference that part. There's still No Man's Land is one of the movies that if anybody, he got the Oscar for the best foreign film years ago. And that's an interesting take on the war. And it's kind of a sad story, but if you've never seen it, take a look.
Okay, I'll put all those on the links page for Hey
Yeah,
Human.
No Man's Land it got the Oscar.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget what year was it, but it was good. It was, if you watch it with the Bosnian friends, they would be probably laughing, and the movie is really so sad. But the language is that you can't translate. There's so many lingo jokes and stuff like that comes with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but happy to talk to anybody. If you have any questions, you can ping me.
Okay.
You have my cell phone number in the case you need to call me.
Will you send me a photograph of that map you were talking about? And I will
absolutely. I have the map during the war where it's actually...
Yeah, send me that.
I framed it, and it's kind of interesting because you will see the war map where Serbs were, where the Muslims were, where the front lines are, and the things are highlighted. And
good. Yeah, I'll put that when I post your episode. I do it on the social medias. That I'll include that photograph as well. Yeah,
I'll do that. I'll gotta find it. What it is? It's framed somewhere.
Okay. Thank you, Enes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Susan. Have a lovely afternoon. Enjoy the weather.
You as well, and thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.